Hello, this is Craig from bitsbox.co.uk. In this video, I'm going to be painting a member of the human team from Bloodbowl, as you can see here. So, we're going to do like a yellow and blue colour scheme for him, something different. I very foolishly undercoated him in black. I just used a brush-on primer from Vallejo. I usually undercoat things in grey, and in hindsight I probably should have done with these miniatures, but never mind. I can show you how I paint yellow over a black undercoat, and we are actually going to begin with the yellow sections. So first things first, I'm going to take some Avalanche Sunset. So even though this is a base paint, we are going to need several coats to go over this black to get a nice smooth finish, and I am going to thin it down. It's very important if you do require multiple coats to thin the paint down, otherwise you'll end up losing a lot of the detail. So not all his armour is going to be yellow, only certain bits. The chest plate certainly, and also the helmet. You see it's quite thin, but that's what we want. Also going to do these armour panels here. Oops. His knee pads also, I'm just going to paint entirely yellow. It doesn't matter if we get yellow on any other areas at this stage, not important at all. And on the back as well, I'm just going to paint all these areas yellow. And lastly, I'm also going to just do these little sections of armour on his arms. So as you can see, that's not a very good looking yellow, and it's very green in places. I have been painting my other miniatures from the set this way, and I have found that we need about 3 or 4 thin coats of Avalanche Sunset if we're going over black to get a nice smooth finish. Of course, if you're going over white or grey primer, you should only need 2 at the very most. So I'm going to paint, well, I'm going to let this guy dry, then I'm going to paint 2 or 3 more thin layers, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I've given him 4 coats of the Avalanche Sunset. That's given us a nice solid yellow colour. So next I'm going to add a shade wash to this. I'm going to take some Fugan Orange. So at this stage, I just want to apply it all over. Just make sure it gets in all the recesses. It doesn't matter if it tints the surface, this will look quite orange once it's dry, but we're going to come back in with the Avalanche Sunset in the next step, and that'll neaten that all up. And there we go. Okay, so now that shade wash has completely dried, and you can see the miniature sort of looks a little bit orange now, so we're going to go back in with Avalanche Sunset, and we're going to re-establish that yellow. So essentially what we're doing here, I'll start on the helmet, we're going back over all these yellow areas, and you probably just need the 1 thin coat now. And we're going to leave the Fugan Orange just in all the recesses. So just carefully work your way around the miniature. And then once that's complete, we can move on to the highlights. So now we've re-established that yellow, we can now begin to highlight it. And to highlight it, we're going to take some Uriel Yellow. So I thinned it down just a little bit with some water. So that'll flow nicely and it won't leave too stark a highlight. And we're just going to edge highlight just all the armour panels. Like so. I'm also going to just catch the rivets. On areas such as the helmet, we can just run a line of it just carefully along these edges. So I'll just work around the rest of the miniature and then we can start on the blue areas. Okay, so the yellow is now complete and we can move on to the blue areas, and to begin we are going to take some Cantor Blue. So this is for all the armour plates that we haven't painted so far. So shoulder pads. Also the thigh plates. And that's pretty much it really. So yeah, let's apply a bit to each areas we're painting blue. Cantor Blue covers the black pretty well, but I will still give it a couple of thin coats to give a nice smooth finish as always. Okay, so next up we're going to go straight into the highlighting. I'm going to start with some Altdorf Card Blue. So all I'm doing here is just edge highlighting the shoulder pads and the thigh plates as well. And I'm trying to work around the entire edges of all these armour plates. Like so, and as this paint is slightly thinned down, that will dry a bit darker, so it'll look quite subtle. And when you get these little scratches here, I just like to run just a highlight along the top edges. So just work around all these armour plates. And once you've done that, you can add a further highlight. This time we're going to take some Hoeth Blue and we're just going to apply this just on the corners. So this is a lot lighter. So just on these corners here. And you can get all the little rivets as well if you wish. And when it comes to the scratches, I'm just going to highlight them just more centrally. Like so. So I'll just work around the rest of the armour plates, and then next up we're going to start on all the cloth, such as his trousers and undershirt. Okay, so for these areas, I actually quite like how GW paint it in their painting guide in the Bloodbowl book, and I believe it's also the same way on their painting tutorial video. And for those of you who know how these are painted, you can always skip forward to the next details after this, or if you don't, then carry on watching. So we're gonna start with Rakarth Flesh. I think this sort of this colour works well with any type of armour really. It's probably why it works quite well. We'll paint on the back because there's a lot more this area here. So any areas will still got the primer showing. If you've used a black primer like me, you of course need a couple of thin coats. Otherwise, on a lighter primer, you may get away with just one. So we have the trousers here, and he also has a little bit of an undershirt under his armour, so sort of around his midriff area. And there's also just a little bit on his collar there, so make sure you get that. And there's also tiny bits of sleeve shown through as well. Okay, with these areas now dry, we can add a wash. And I'm going to take some Seraphim Sepia. So I don't really need to thin this out much, just using the dampness of the brush really. And we're applying it just all over these areas that end up pull up in the recesses. Again, as with the yellow, don't worry about it tinting the surface, because we will be painting back over this with the base colours. So apply it all over these areas and just make sure it sells. And if it pulls up too much, you can just wipe it away with your brush, like so. Okay, so as you can see, that shade wash is now dried and has tinted this surface quite a bit. So now we're going to come back in with our Rekar flesh, and we're just going to re-establish the base coat. So same as we did with the yellow areas, we're just going to be applying this over the areas again, but this time just leaving out anywhere where the shade has settled into the recesses. And with that, that's brought the colour back up. So now we're going to highlight it. And for our highlight colour, we're going to take some pallid witch flesh. So I'll thin this down so it flows nice and smooth, and we're essentially just going to get some of the edges. So anywhere where there's like a fold or a crease, we just want to run just a thin line, and thinner than that really. Way too much on the brush there, so I'll just wipe that off. And more like just a little edge highlight like that. It's much better. And just follow all the folds and the creases, and as I've kept the paint thin, that will dry slightly darker than this, so the highlights won't look as stark. Okay, now that's complete. We're going to move on to the flesh areas. Now there's not much flesh areas on these, just a little bit just on the face and the neck, and a little bit on the arms. And to paint these, I'm going to start with some Bugman's Glow. So I'm just going to carefully pick out these areas. You have the top of so around the eyes, just around there. It's a bit awkward to paint on camera, so I do apologise, but you can see the general gist of what I'm doing. I'll neaten it up. Off camera we have a little bit just on the arms around here also, so just apply Bugman's Glow to these areas, and it goes on quite smoothly as well, so you'll probably only just need a single coat. Okay, so next we're going to highlight skin. I do want to point out quickly that I did paint the socks earlier, just in the same way as I've previously done the yellow and blue. Also, I just changed the camera setup just slightly, so hopefully the lighting's just a little bit better on this. So we're going to take some Acadian flesh tone. Essentially we're going to go over most of the skin again. However, we're going to leave the Bugman's Glow just in the recesses. So it'll be easier to show you on the arm here. I've got a little too much on the brush. So we just take all these raised flat areas here and just lay out Acadian flesh tone. If I move my thumb out of the way, you can actually see. And then we just leave the Bugman's Glow just in the recesses like that. So next up, we're going to do a little highlight on the skin, and we're going to take some Kislev flesh to do this. So essentially, and I'll go back on this arm over here, we just want to just do a little sort of line just like that just on the edges of all the muscles. I've thinned it down just slightly so it doesn't look too stark when it dries. And hopefully you can see that. Alright. So you just work your way around the rest of the flesh. And then you can move on to a final part of doing the flesh, at least. So lastly, to finish off the skin, we're just going to take some Reikland Flesh Shade. And we're just going to do a little thin down wash just over all the flesh areas. That'll just bring the colours together quite nicely and just bring out some of them. Some of the shadows just a little bit more. Now you'll notice I've also painted the wrist and the hand. It wasn't until I just looked at some of the pictures of the models in the book that I noticed that these bits were still flesh. There's some very weird sort of lines in them, so they don't really look like part of the arms, but they are, so I've painted them as well. I'll just go a little bit into the neck. I'm sorry if it's a bit difficult to see at times, it is a bit awkward. We are looking into trying to change the setup slightly for these videos, but hopefully you can see the miniature alright. So, with the skin done, there's only really a few areas left to do. Mainly leather areas, such as the shoes, and then we have all the metal areas, which we are going to do next. So the metal areas are going to be kept quite simple really. We are going to take some lead belcher, move the model in. I'm not doing any gold on this miniature, I'm only doing silver, mainly because I didn't want to do gold with the yellow. So pretty straightforward, we're just going to paint lead belcher on all the areas we want to be metal. So that includes his claws, and we have the helmet details here. And I'm just going over roughly just to show you which areas we are doing this way, and I'll neaten it up off camera. And of course the back of the claws, I want to do this whole armor plate here too. You could of course do it yellow and just do the spikes in silver, but I'm going to do the whole armor plate in silver. So just work your way around the miniature, and then we can move on to the next step. So next we're going to shade wash these parts with some Nuln Oil. So you don't want to go too heavy with the Nuln Oil, but of course you want enough to get in the recesses, and start on the helmet here. I'm just going to shade in all these recesses here and sort of just leave them quite dark. And then on the blades as well. See a little bit more on the brush. And you see it's not too heavy, but it just adds a little bit in the shadows. So with that wash now completely dry, we can highlight the silver areas, and I'm going to take some Stormhost Silver. So I like this silver as it's very bright. I just need to give the pot a really good shake. As I find with most metallic paints, they do need a really good shake before use. But this is a very bright silver colour, and that will highlight these silver areas really nicely. So I'm just going to edge highlight across the top here using the side of my brush. Again, other areas you can do this is on the claws. I call them claws, they're sort of like claw type weapons, aren't they? So just a little bit thick there. But this gives us a nice, really shiny silver. And if you don't want to go too shiny, you can use something like Ironbreaker or Runefang Steel that I quite like. It's a really nice shiny metal look. You can also do the same on the helmet and all the other metal areas. And once that's done, we just have the leather areas left before he is complete. So lastly, we're going to paint the leather areas. Now these include some of the straps. If I pick up the miniature, some of the straps on the arms here. And also I'm going to paint his shoes in exactly the same manner. So to start with, we're going to take some dried bark. So you could use rhinox hide, but I quite like the dried bark because it's slightly lighter. And we'll just get on, start painting a shoe here. So you could also do these black if you wish. For black I'd use a Baden black, and then maybe Venetian grey highlight, but I'm going to do brown. And of course when it comes to the straps, you just need to be as neat as you can. Just oh, it's very difficult to paint these awkward areas on camera as well. So I'm just going to go off camera and finish painting these straps, and then we can begin some shade wash and highlights. Okay, so now we're going to apply a shade wash, and I'm only really going to apply this to the boots. It's not really too necessary to do on the straps. Before I apply it, I will tell you what shade wash I'm applying. It is Nuln Oil. Let's get a little bit ahead of myself there. So I'm just going to apply it all over the boots, and I'll just bring out just a little bit of a detail on them. And then once that's dry, we're going to come back and highlight them, and then aside from the base, the miniature will be complete. Okay, so finally, now that that wash is completely dried, we can highlight the boots and the straps, and to do so, we're going to take some Gorfor brown. So you only need a little bit of this on your brush. Now I'm going to thin it out just ever so slightly. And essentially it's just a case, let me get on camera, just following some of these lines on the boot, like that. Couple of little bits there. I'm just going to run it around there. Now it looks quite stark as it goes on, but of course if we thin the paints down, that will dry a bit darker, and that'll give us a nice highlight. And in regards to the straps on the arm, it's just a case, we'll just run on a line as neat as you can, just either side of the straps. And then once you've done both boots and the straps, all that's left is to base the miniature, and he is complete. And here is the finished miniature, with a few other members of his team alongside him, just so you can see what they look like when the bases are complete. So I'm quite happy with how he came out. These are not my best paint job by any means, but I just want to show you guys a good tabletop standard for them. I quite like the yellow and blue armour together. I think it works quite well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, then of course you can give it a thumbs up. And if you wish to subscribe to our channel for all our latest videos and you want to keep up to date with them, then you can certainly do so. And there'll be plenty more painting tutorials in the future. So I hope you'll enjoy them also. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all again in the next video.